All right, welcome back to another episode of Crestview Leads, where I, Tim Bolduc, get to talk to people who've had influence in my life, specifically in the area of leadership, about all sorts of different topics. And today is an exciting one for me. I got a good friend of mine here, Mr. Dayne Tosi. Welcome, Dayne.
It's good to be here.
Yeah.
Glad you invited me.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to have you. So Dayne and I know each other. We're friends. We've taught some classes together. He's actually taught some classes for the city as it relates to kind of public relations, communication classes, high intensity communication classes. Right. What would you call it?
Like messaging or countering exploitation attempts, things like that.
Right. So, but your day job is what? Tell us what you do.
So I've been in the military for a little over 15 years now, the United States Air Force. So my job is titled Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape, or they just call it SERE specialist.
Okay.
But currently, the last 5 years, I've been employed as a combat aviation advisor for the special operations community. So,
right.
But my background is still in I'm there as a SERE specialist doing SERE-related things. Yeah.
Right. So you go teach people how to survive in the middle of nowhere, right?
Yeah. Survive in the middle of nowhere, survive in captivity,
right.
Things like that.
And then aside from your military thing, you have Cardinal.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
A few years ago, a buddy of mine and I decided that, we would go on, deployments, a bunch of different places around the world, and we would have conversations and, people want to know who you are, what you're doing here. And so you have these kind of casual conversations. And once they find out who you are and what you do, they want to know, man, can you do that for us? And these would be people
right.
like field reporters, humanitarian organizations, missionaries, things like that. And through my official capacity in the military, there really is no avenue to do that. So we went and talked with Air Force Legal and got it approved to create a small business on the side that now allows us to do training and consulting
right.
outside of the Air Force.
So what's the name of it?
Cardinal Contingency Solutions.
And how do they find it?
So you can go to teamcardinal.com. Cardinal has 2 L's on it. We got a website there.
Cool.
And you guys have really been, kind of a blessing for us. We, the first run-in, we had started this, and nowhere in our startup of this, originally the idea was to help people that are non-military, non-Department of
right.
Defense people traveling to uncertain or dangerous locations, how to prepare themselves and plan properly to make sure they make it back home. But had a run-in, kind of one-off conversation with you about some stuff that your police officers were dealing with. It is something that we do in the military quite a bit, but I never thought there'd be interest for it outside of that.
Right.
And then that led to a lunch meeting with the police chief. And then ever since then, that's been like the most popular kind of product that we've had.
Yeah. So what interested me about it is, right now it's tough to be a cop. Okay. So, bad cops are a very small percentage of the total cops in the world, for sure. Very, very small. Right. But they make it very hard on all cops when, by their actions or their conduct. And so everything, and especially in recent years, it's elevated the anxiety and everything that surrounds the day-to-day operations as a law enforcement officer. And so not unlike military acting overseas or performing overseas. And so when we were talking, what interested me about it is you guys create or have honed a series of tools that help your operators, special operations folks overseas, to deal with high stress scenarios. And then when people jump in and try to get them to say something they shouldn't say or act stupid, for lack of a better way to put it. And so I liked the idea of having some tools in place, and that's what started that conversation. You came out and taught that class for us.
Yeah, and it was received really well. We kind of built it as a favor, really, for you and the chief. And then really on your guys' kind of encouragement, we decided, the feedback we got from you guys and from, the local police department to get it out there more. So we kind of polished it up a little bit. And
so we got the dirty version.
Yeah, you guys. Well, fortunately, you guys have invited us out the last couple of years. I actually have one in a couple weeks here with the Crestview PD again. And so it is a living product. One of the things we kind of pride ourselves in my profession in the military is basically building custom solutions. Nothing is
Right.
cookie cutter, no situation is cookie cutter. And so the course is now titled Tactical Communicator. And the reason behind that is employing a set of tactics that only work when you have an end goal in mind, right? And you need to have and establish an end goal in mind. Then you can backwards plan and develop tactics to help you get to that end state.
Right. What I love about the way you do that too is so then as you're backwards, so there's an end goal, and as you're working backwards from that end goal, for us, you took our core values and made those the backstop.
Right.
And so then you developed basically a rotary wheel of our core values and then solutions or answers.
Yeah, it's a little pocket size. We call it the bullseye tool. A buddy of mine actually came up with the idea. It was pretty genius kind of visual aid.
Right.
And so, it's 2 rings and then a bullseye. And the outer ring is a series of tactics that, regardless of whatever question, concern, comment, antagonistic statement, accusation made against you, you can address that concern with the appropriate tactic. And then the inner ring is your core values for the department. Right. And if you have those, great. If not, that's something we can co-develop, along with you. And then your central message, which is the message you're trying to get out and to affect the overall narrative within the community. And so the goal is, no matter every conversation you have, whether you initiate it or not, is an opportunity for you to push out your values and your central message. Right. And so not only it does 2 things, it helps you not be exploited, even as an untrained exploiter, just an individual with an agenda. If I'm having a conversation with you and you don't have an agenda, you don't have a place you want the conversation to go, I will win eventually.
Right. Because you're going to steer the conversation where you're going.
Yeah. And so now it equips, law enforcement and public officials with a desired end state is what we would call it, like a desired end state, and then gives them the tools. And then really what we practice in the class is how to transition. That's really the secret. Right. Once you understand, what technique to use, the trick is just, how do I transition now? And then we do a lot of live reps with this, and the course is just 1 day of training. It's pretty, down and dirty.
Yeah. What's so good about it is and I tell my team this too. If you have a good message, if your message is true, it will sell. The deal is you just have to have the confidence and the preparation to be able to deliver that message, right? And really that's what it comes down to. It's not necessarily, it's not about the manipulation of a conversation in any other way than ensuring that you get what is good, what is right out, right? Instead of allowing someone else to control the conversation. And in this, look, we're on all sorts of social media platforms with this podcast. Social media is great for what it's great for, but where it has caused problems, a lot of the area that it's caused problems in is it empowers people who don't know anything about a topic to, have a say in that topic. And then if they are confident enough or crazy enough, then they can get people to follow them in that path. And this tool helps to back that down, bring it back to where reality's at, direct, misdirect, whatever it is, and then get back to your core values and why.
Yeah, and one of the things that we explain right away is I think a lot of the communications training that exists out there is not only ineffective, but I think in a lot of ways it's counter-effective because it's trying to teach you really just to be a really nice and accepting person and win everybody over. But that's the wrong way to look at it. If I am an ideologically driven person seeking propaganda for my own gain, I need you to be the bad guy. Right. These people need, for law enforcement in this particular instance, they need law enforcement to be the bigoted, oppressive, person in order to sustain the little hierarchy that they've, put themselves in. And so they can't let you win. Right. And so you trying to appease them and win them over and make a really convincing argument is not the right approach. And so one of the first things we do is we discuss with them what winning actually looks like. Right. And what I found interesting doing this with law enforcement was, I think 2 things. I think initially they're really pleased with kind of how simple it seems. Like you're saying, you're articulating the things that they all think and know to be true, but just haven't heard anybody say it. And since I'm not within the organization, I can have the freedom to say what I think is BS and say what I think is true. And you can kick me out of the room if you want, or I'm not part of the department. But also, I think they also find some solace in knowing that you don't have to be like a Ben Shapiro type.
Right.
You don't have to be an articulate expert debater with a plethora of facts. You just need to know what are the things that are true that you want to articulate, and then just how do you get there and not get sidetracked.
And I think that's why it's so important to work in an organization where you believe in what those core values are.
100%.
Because if for like, hopefully, Lord willing, our troops, our officers, our firefighters, our public works operators, our public information team, hopefully they all believe in what is TRACK for us, which is our core values. And it's teamwork, respect, adaptability, communication, and knowledge. So they believe that those are good, solid core values, and that's why they can work here. And so if you work for a place where you believe in what those core values are, then getting the conversation back to that is nothing. It just, to me, it empowers you to stay in the conversation, get the message across, and not be run around the circle.
Right.
So,
and you need to be able to believe in what it is you're doing. And that's one of the things we tell them when we walk in. Like, we're not academics. I'm not here to espouse a bunch of ideas.
In fact, that's one of the reasons that I hired you guys to come in and do it. Because every other public information or public response class I had ever been to was taught by some doctor or some professor at a college. And, God bless them, we need them. But the reality of it is, if I could pick a guy who's been downrange, who could potentially have been in front of a camera or has been in front of a camera downrange, that can give you tools to do it, versus someone who read about it and has never actually done it, my cops are going to listen, my firefighters are going to listen, my people are going to listen much more to somebody who has actually had to answer the questions. And that's one of the reasons why we hired you guys to do it. But let's get on the topic. Good stuff. Obviously we love it. We keep bringing you back, apparently. It's been good
Happy
for us.
to do it.
Yeah. But one of the things I wanted to talk about with you is, because of the nature of what you do, you said you're a combat aviator. And I said, well, what does that mean? And then this is before, and you explained it as basically you put together. Tell me real quick what a combat aviator does.
It's a combat aviation advisor. So we go and do what's called like air-ground integration. And so it's in the special operations community, and we would deploy in small teams, and we would go work with partner nation forces to what we would call by, with, and through. So whatever the strategic goal is, the shared strategic goal there is enable them to do it with them, do it through them to help accomplish, this goal. So it's a lot of traveling to different countries, kind of living on the economy there, blending in, working with them in their assets, as opposed to more, traditional military style. You'd go over there, you'd bring your own aircraft, you'd bring your own, you'd stay on a base, things like that. So we work a little off grid that way.
So one of the things that I think is so interesting about this, the more that we've talked about it, is or for me, is when I'm trying to reverse engineer or dissect this idea of by, with, and through. You're going to a different country. You're in a culture that you're not familiar with. You're in operating with people that speak a language that you're not familiar with, or maybe you are, but that is not common to you. And you're able to help them to accomplish a big goal. And then we go and try to translate into just regular leadership at a local level, supervision at a local level. And sometimes we can't seem to get our employees to get on board with a goal. So how do you go somewhere way away that you're not familiar to them, they're not familiar to you, speaking a different language, and get people to buy into an overall direction? Or is it their direction that you're trying to help? How do you do that?
I think the first thing, and some of this is just my own isms, my own opinions here, but I think the big thing is, if you're going to be a leader at any level, you have to believe in what you're doing. You have to have an objective place that you're trying to get to. Like, I make this point all the time at work. You can't lead if you don't know where you're going. If you don't have something that you believe to be objectively true, then how can you lead if you don't know where you're going? And I think real leadership is not defined by your title or your paycheck, or I don't think organizations or other leaders determine who the next leader is. Real leader, we can, and the military is famous for this. We like to give ourselves different titles and things like that, whether it's accurate or not. Yeah. And, but real leadership, I believe, is defined by people who follow you. Followers decide who leaders are. And so
very good.
You can say it all day, but I use this analogy a lot. I teach a lot of land navigation skills around the world, and if you were lost out in the woods and I stumbled across you and you went, oh, good, Dayne, thank God you're here, man. How are we going to get out of here? And I went, oh, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going. Like, I'm not able to lead you anywhere. So I think the first thing is you got to believe in the cause, believe in the vision. And then, as far as communicating that with partners, it's trying to get them to understand that the goal isn't my goal. This is our goal.
Yeah.
And the success or the failure will be our success or our failure. And I think one of the big things about the way our specific community tries to do it is we don't want any of the credit for this. This is a way for
you're talking about the SF community, or
right?
Okay.
This is a way for your country to gain and maintain all the credit for this.
Right.
Let us come alongside. Let's enable you. Let's help you do something that's beneficial for you, beneficial for the region, ultimately beneficial for us as well. We're not deceptive or hiding anything. There's a mutual interest here, and it's going to benefit us all if we can accomplish this goal together.
So which translates into everyday leadership, no matter what you're doing. Right.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter whether you're running the shift at McDonald's, whether you're running the shift at the city of Crestview, whatever you're doing. If you're in the position that's trusted to get the thing done. Hopefully, you are the chosen leader by the people following, right? Mm-hmm. But you're tasked to get the thing done. At the end of the day, if you can figure out how to translate or transfer the success to them, transfer the overall goal, desire to accomplish it to them, then whether you're right there or not right there, they're still getting the mission accomplished.
You need to, I think one of the fundamental jobs, if not the most fundamental job of somebody in a leadership position, is to vision cast. You need to be able to create and paint the vision, and then people can buy into it, and then they can see themselves as a necessary contributor to accomplishing that goal. And I think you change even large organizations. You change them at an individual level. This is kind of like reverse engineering the way we teach people how escape techniques. Is no matter how big an obstacle might look, like a set of handcuffs or a security fence or something like that, it's really just comprised of individual components. And when you understand the individual components and you can compromise any of those individual components, you can compromise the integrity of the whole thing. Right. But
so next time we're going to have you teach us how to take handcuffs off.
We will. We actually have a department asking us to come on and teach lock-picking skills so they don't have to bust doors down anymore. So, but yeah, so I think sometimes we look corporately too much when we're put in these positions of authority rather than zeroing in on the individuals that make up the whole and realizing you're gonna change your organization, and I believe even change the world at an individual level. And so part of what we do in our job is we take the individual relationships seriously, really getting to know them, understand them, what their motivations are. It's not, I think sometimes when you're too removed from kind of the boots on the ground, so to speak, level, things start to turn into like equations,
numbers on a piece of paper.
Right. And like,
I tell my team all the time that everything has to be relational. Right. In order, if you truly want to be in a leadership role, it has to be about the relationships. You have to understand them on a human level. What do they want to accomplish? What do they want to be when they grow up? What do they want their kids to be when they grow up? Not that you're intruding on, the personal side of their life, but if you understand where they're trying to go as a leader, it will help you to figure out how to place them in your organization that will move your mission and their mission ahead at the same time. Right. And so you talked about vision casting. So when I very first came here to the city of Crestview, I had an opportunity to sit down with Dr. Shu, who runs a drone program out at the airport here in Crestview, and he's done all kinds of fantastic things. He's the American dream, right? He came here from another country, joined our military, was a pilot. got his citizenship, joined the military, became a pilot, sold his business, huge business, now has a foundation, a shoe foundation. But he was telling me, Tim, he said, Tim, if you want to be able to lead this team, it was after he had trained my team, come out to do a training with my team one day. And then afterwards we were debriefing. And he said, if you want to be able to lead this team, you need to be able to cast a vision so they can see things as they should be. He said, if you can take what's in your mind and get them to see it as what this city's going to look like, then they'll get on board and then they'll be able to follow you. He said, but until you get that figured out, then, you're just telling them what to do. They're not going and doing it on their own.
The ideal place you want to get people to, I believe, is you want to get people to a place where they want to do what they ought to do, right? Yeah. That's the thing.
Say that again. I like that one. Say that again.
Where you can get people to buy in enough that they are doing what they ought to do because they want to do it.
Because they want to do it.
Right. So that way you don't have to be there prodding them, motivating them, every single step along the way, because they're bought in. And, I've heard you say it before, in some of the classes that you and I teach together and stuff is for them to have some ownership of it, to see themselves like, that old saying of, when all boats rise when the tide comes in, right?
And a rising tide rises all boats.
Right. And so if I can create this vision or accomplish this goal that benefits, my community, my neighborhood, my country, it benefits me and the things I care about and my family, and everybody is going to benefit from this. And to see themselves, I think one of the things people are driven by is purpose, and to see themselves as, this isn't just for some kudos or some bonus. You are a necessary part of this vision coming to life, right? We need you here.
I think that the greatest, so, I've been and did sales years ago and all that. So I've been to all these different motivational speakers and Zig Ziglars and all those of the world, and they're great at what they do. But I think if more or bigger than that, if a leader or a supervisor or whoever it is could actually figure out how to connect each person to their purpose and their purpose to the program, what we're trying to do here, then you would be able to get people to not only buy into to what we're doing, but to own it, and then whether you're there or not there, go out and accomplish it. Right. But what happens so often is that we just try to get them to agree to or buy into or motivate them by what the outcome is, without connecting the overall outcome to what our purpose is. I believe our purpose here is to make, I tell people this all the time, our purpose is to help others reach their full potential. Right, that's what I believe we're on this earth for. I think we come here amongst some other things, but I think we come, especially if you're in a position of leadership, you do your job, you have to do your job, but that job allows you the access to people to help them reach their full potential. And so if you can't connect them to their purpose, I don't think they reach their full potential. Yeah. And so that's I love that, and the idea of casting vision.
And I think people can kind of smell when people are disingenuous about it, right? Like one of the things I like about, like listening to you talk, and you'll always, kind of critique yourself and say, oh, I'm not a great speaker or whatever. But I don't think that, I don't necessarily agree with you, but I also don't think that matters too much. I think people actually believe what you're saying. You come across as genuine, and part of the reason, and I know your faith, sure. I know kind of some of your ideas and stuff. And if you are somebody who genuinely believes that we were created, by necessity, it mandates that if you're designed, you must have a destiny, right? Which means there must be some specific potential to you that could be, identified and cultivated and maximized. And so then you start to really value, like, what can we unlock in these people that are on my team? If we're able to.
Because I do believe if we are created, which I believe we are, for a purpose, then in that purpose we'll find joy. It doesn't make sense that I'm made to do something or accomplish something and I'm going to be miserable getting there, right?
Well, and they've even unlocked this, neurobiologically too, that as we pursue purpose, and there's a goal, there's a vision, there's a mission that's set out in front of us. And then as we move toward that, when we see the mile markers along the way, we get dopamine releases right within our brain, our chemistry that makes us feel good about the pursuit of that, right? And the interesting thing is we actually become dissatisfied once we accomplish the goal, We're ready for the next thing.
For
so
sure.
yeah,
I run up against that. Whenever I
Yeah.
get to where I'm going, I'm like, what next?
People actually want purpose.
Yeah,
you
no
know?
doubt. Well, listen, we're getting, believe it or not, we're getting to the end of our time here. So I asked this question. I try to ask this question of everybody on the show, so I want to ask it of you. As you look back over your career, can you think of somebody, a leader in your life that's had some influence on you in a positive way? Influence or the way that they influenced you is something you want to emulate, and why? So like who led you well and why, and why would you want to copy that?
For me, I think it's my mother, because, I witnessed her sacrifice a lot. She could have done a lot more, but she chose to stay home, to raise us, to make sure that we always had a mother around, even after, my dad was gone and that kind of stuff. And to me, that's the definition of sacrificial leadership. We see this term thrown around all the time, but it really means, that pyramid kind of hierarchy is flipped on its head, where the person at the top serves everybody else as opposed to everybody else serving the purpose at the top. And what's beautiful about that is me, my brother and sister, we respect and listen to my mother even to this day, not out of some obligation, not because we need to, but because she's earned that from us. We want to. We willingly submit ourselves to her wisdom and to her advice and listen to and consider her. And so I think if you want to be a real leader, you practice that model to earn the trust of your people. And it's not an easy thing to do, to lay yourself down, not ultimately, but daily. Lay yourself down for the betterment of the people on your team. And then people will willingly submit to your vision, and they'll want to be a part of it. You won't have to force them.
Very cool. Very cool. It's so funny. I've heard people say before, I'm a servant leader, and they'll even describe the pyramid, and nobody who's ever described it to me, nobody who I would ever consider to be a servant leader is the one who described it to me. Yeah. Right. So it's the people that we talk about. It's your mother. Like, your mother's not going to go and say, I'm a servant leader. It's right. You that says that about her. That's fantastic. Listen, man, I appreciate you taking some time out of your afternoon, coming and hanging out with us here. We will definitely get you back next time. We'll talk about we'll find something else. There's all kinds of cool stuff. Maybe we'll get you to talk about some stuff you're not supposed to, like some top secret stuff.
Yeah.
No, but anyway, so for those of you who watch the podcast, listen to the podcast, you can check us out on all platforms. Please like it and share it, and we'll see you next time.